Hello. Today I want to tell you a story about a feeling many people have but do not always talk about. It is the feeling of not being enough, even when you are trying your best. Her name is Maya, and from the outside, her life looks normal and even happy. She smiles when she talks to people, she does her work, and she keeps going every day. But inside, something feels heavy, like she is always carrying a quiet pressure that no one else can see. Every morning, Maya wakes up and reaches for her phone before she even gets out of bed. She scrolls through pictures and videos of other people, and everything looks perfect to her. They look more confident, more successful, more sure about their lives. She starts comparing herself without even thinking about it, and a small voice in her mind says that she is behind, that she should be doing more, that she should already be better. When she gets ready, she stands in front of the mirror and looks at herself carefully, not in a kind way, but in a critical way. She fixes her hair, changes her clothes, and still feels like something is not right. It is not really about how she looks, but it feels like it is, because it is the only thing she can see in that moment. As she goes through her day, she works hard and tries to do everything correctly. She listens, she helps, she stays quiet, and she avoids making mistakes. Even when people say she is doing well, she does not fully believe them. She thinks maybe they are just being nice, or maybe they do not really see her clearly. At the end of the day, she is tired, but not just from work. She is tired from thinking, from comparing, from trying to be better all the time. When she gets home, everything becomes quiet, and that is when her thoughts become louder. She sits alone, and the questions start again in her mind. Am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Will I ever feel like I am enough? These questions do not have easy answers, and that makes them even heavier. One night, she sits on her bed and feels something different. It is not sadness exactly, and it is not anger. It is more like she is tired of feeling this way all the time. She slowly stands up and walks to the mirror again, but this time she is not trying to fix anything. She just looks at herself, really looks, without rushing, without judging too quickly. For a moment, she does not say anything in her mind. There is no negative voice, no pressure, just silence. Then a small thought comes, very quiet and very gentle, and it feels different from her usual thoughts. The thought says maybe you are already enough. At first, she almost rejects it because it feels unfamiliar, but she pauses and lets it stay for a moment. She does not fully believe it right away, but she also does not push it away. The next day, her life does not suddenly change. She still wakes up, still goes to work, and still has moments of doubt. But now there is something new, something small but important. There is another voice, softer and calmer, that sometimes speaks when the other one gets loud. It tells her that she is trying, that she is growing, that she does not have to be perfect to have value. Some days she believes this voice more than others, and some days she falls back into old patterns, but slowly things begin to shift. She notices she is not comparing as much. She notices she is breathing more deeply. She notices that she feels just a little lighter. One day she catches herself smiling at something small, and she realizes it has been a while since that felt natural. She understands that being enough does not mean being perfect or having everything figured out. It means accepting where you are while still growing, without hating yourself in the process. And maybe that is what she needed all along, not to become someone else, but to stop fighting who she already is. If you have ever felt like Maya, if you have ever felt like you are not enough, take a moment and think about this. You are still learning, you are still changing, and you are still moving forward, even when it feels slow. That matters more than you think. And maybe, just maybe, you are already enough right now. And even after that moment, Maya did not suddenly become confident or completely free from doubt. The feeling did not disappear overnight, and there were still mornings when she woke up and felt that same quiet pressure in her chest. She still reached for her phone sometimes, and she still compared herself without meaning to. But now something was different. Now she noticed it. Before, those thoughts felt like facts, like truth, but now she could see them as just thoughts passing through her mind. One afternoon, she was sitting alone with her coffee, watching people walk by, and she realized something she had never thought about before. Everyone looked busy, everyone looked like they knew where they were going, but she wondered if they also felt the same way inside. She wondered if maybe they also had doubts, if maybe they also questioned themselves when no one was watching. That idea stayed with her for a while, and it made her feel a little less alone. Later that day, she made a small decision. Nothing big, nothing dramatic, just something simple. Instead of trying to be perfect at everything, she decided she would just try to be honest with herself. If she felt tired, she would admit it. If she felt unsure, she would allow it. If she made a mistake, she would not immediately turn it into a reason to hate herself. It felt uncomfortable at first, almost like she was doing something wrong because she was so used to being hard on herself. But slowly she started to feel a small sense of relief. It was like she could finally breathe without feeling like she had to prove something all the time. Days passed, and little moments began to change. She laughed a little more naturally. She spoke a little more freely. She stopped replaying every conversation in her head at night. And when that old voice came back, the one that told her she was not enough, she did not fight it aggressively. She simply noticed it and let it pass, like a cloud moving across the sky. One evening, she stood in front of the mirror again, but this time something felt calm. She was not searching for flaws, and she was not trying to fix anything. She just looked at herself and saw a person who was trying, a person who was learning, a person who was still becoming. And for the first time in a long time, that felt okay. Not perfect, not amazing, but okay in a peaceful way. She realized that maybe life was not about reaching a point where you finally feel enough forever. Maybe it was about learning how to treat yourself better, even on the days when you do not feel your best. Maybe it was about choosing again and again to be a little kinder to yourself, even when it feels difficult. And that thought stayed with her as she turned off the lights and got into bed. The room was quiet. Her mind was calmer, and for once, she did not feel like she needed to change everything about herself before she could rest. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, not because everything was perfect, but because she finally understood that she did not need to be perfect to deserve peace. And as she slowly drifted to sleep, there was one quiet thought that remained, steady and gentle, reminding her that she was still here, still trying, and still enough in ways she was only beginning to understand. The next morning felt different, not because anything around Maya had changed, but because something inside her had become quieter. She woke up, and for a moment she just stayed still, noticing how the light came through her window and how calm everything felt before the day started. Usually her first thought would be about what she needed to do or what she was behind on, but this time there was space between her thoughts. She still had responsibilities. She still had things to figure out, but they did not feel as heavy as before. When she reached for her phone, she paused for a second, then slowly put it back down. It was a small decision, but it felt important, like she was choosing how her day would begin instead of letting it control her. She got out of bed and moved through her routine, brushing her teeth, washing her face, and getting dressed, but everything felt a little more intentional. She was not rushing, and she was not trying to become someone else. She was just being present in what she was doing. As she looked in the mirror, she noticed the same face, the same features, the same person she had seen every day, but something about the way she looked at herself had softened. She was not searching for what was wrong anymore, and she was not trying to measure herself against anyone else. She simply saw herself, and for a moment, that was enough. When she stepped outside, the air felt fresh, and she took a deeper breath than usual. The world around her had not changed. People were still moving quickly, cars were still passing by, and everything continued as it always had. But she did not feel as rushed to keep up. She walked at her own pace, noticing small things she normally ignored, like the sound of footsteps on the ground or the way the wind moved through the trees. During the day, there were still moments when doubt came back. There were still times when she questioned herself or felt like she was not doing enough. But now those moments did not last as long. They did not take over her entire day like they used to. Instead, she noticed them, acknowledged them, and then gently brought herself back to the present. It was not perfect, and it was not easy, but it was different in a way that mattered. Later that afternoon, she made a mistake at work. Something small but noticeable, and for a brief moment, the old feeling returned. Her chest tightened, and her mind started to go back to that familiar place of self-criticism. But this time, she paused. She took a breath and reminded herself that making a mistake did not mean she was not enough. It just meant she was human. That thought did not erase the feeling completely, but it softened it enough for her to move forward without getting stuck. When the day ended and she returned home, she did not feel as drained as she usually did. She still felt tired, but it was a different kind of tired, not the kind that comes from fighting yourself all day. She sat down, looked around her space, and felt a quiet sense of comfort. There was nothing special about the moment, nothing dramatic or life-changing, but there was peace in its simplicity. As the night settled in, she realized that maybe this is how change really happens, not in big, sudden moments, but in small, quiet shifts that slowly reshape how you see yourself and your life. And as she prepared to sleep, she carried that thought with her, not as pressure to become something more, but as a reminder that she was already moving forward, even in ways she could not always see. As the days continued, Maya began to notice something she had never paid attention to before, the way her thoughts would come and go without asking for permission. Sometimes they were kind, sometimes they were not, but they were not always true, and that realization slowly gave her a sense of control she did not know she had. She started to understand that just because she thought something about herself did not mean she had to believe it. One afternoon, while sitting alone, she remembered how many times she had called herself not good enough, without ever questioning where that idea came from. It had been there for so long that it felt like a part of her. But now she could see it differently, like something she had learned rather than something that defined her. That thought stayed with her as she went through her day, and for the first time she felt curious instead of critical. She wondered what it would feel like to treat herself the same way she treated other people, with patience, with understanding, and with kindness. It felt unfamiliar, almost strange, but also a little freeing. Later that evening, she found herself thinking about her past, about moments where she felt like she failed or did not meet expectations. Usually, those memories would make her feel heavy and ashamed, but this time she looked at them in a different way. She saw someone who was trying, someone who did not always know what to do, but who kept going anyway. And instead of judging that version of herself, she felt a small sense of compassion. It was not a strong feeling, and it did not erase everything, but it was there. And that was enough for now. As time passed, she began to notice changes in how she moved through the world. She spoke a little more confidently, not because she believed she was perfect, but because she no longer felt like she had to hide. She allowed herself to take up space, even in small ways like sharing her opinion or asking questions without overthinking every word. These were simple changes, but they made her feel more present in her own life. One day, while walking outside, she caught her reflection in a window and stopped for a moment. She looked at herself again, not out of habit, but out of curiosity. And for once, her first thought was not about what needed to change. Instead, she simply saw a person who was learning how to be okay with herself. That moment felt quiet, but meaningful, like something inside her had settled just a little more. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about how different things felt compared to before. Not easier in every way and not completely free from doubt, but lighter, more manageable, more real. She realized that the feeling of not being enough might not disappear completely, but it no longer controlled her the way it used to. And maybe that was the real change, not becoming someone new, but learning how to live with herself in a way that felt more honest and more kind. As she closed her eyes, she did not search for answers or try to fix anything. She simply allowed herself to rest, knowing that she was still growing, still learning, and still becoming, and that was enough for this moment. The following days did not feel perfect, but they felt steady in a way Maya had never experienced before. There were still moments when doubt appeared without warning, like a familiar voice trying to return, but now it no longer had the same power over her. She began to notice how quickly those thoughts would fade when she did not hold on to them so tightly. Instead of building them into something bigger, she let them pass, and that simple shift made her feel lighter. One morning, while walking to start her day, she realized she was not thinking about what she was lacking or what she needed to fix. She was simply noticing where she was, the sounds around her, the way her body moved, the feeling of being present in her own life. It was a quiet moment, but it felt meaningful, like she had finally stepped out of her own way. Later that day, she had a conversation with someone at work, and for once, she did not replay it over and over in her mind afterward. She said what she needed to say, listened, and then let it be. That alone felt like progress, like she was no longer searching for mistakes in every interaction. As the evening came, she sat down and reflected on how different things felt compared to before. Not drastically different, but enough to notice. The weight she used to carry all the time was no longer as heavy, and she could move through her thoughts without getting stuck in them. She started to understand that growth was not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it looked like choosing to rest without guilt, or choosing to be kind to yourself when you would normally be critical. These small choices began to shape her days in a way that felt more peaceful. One night, as she prepared to sleep, she thought about the version of herself from before, the one who constantly felt behind and not enough. She did not judge that version anymore. Instead, she felt grateful for how far she had come, even if the progress was slow and quiet. She realized that being enough was not something she had to earn or prove. It was something she could accept, little by little, as she continued to grow. And as she lay there in the quiet, she felt a calm sense of understanding settle in her chest. She did not need to rush, she did not need to compare, and she did not need to become someone else to feel okay. She could simply be where she was, continue moving forward, and trust that she was already on the right path, even if she could not see the whole journey yet.